Here is another viewer requested video, and keep them coming. I know this one here has been a long time coming. The individuals wanted to know how you could pour a concrete walkway or a patio, something next to a house with siding to where you wouldn't be covering up the bottom of the siding. So the first thing I want to do is explain why you don't want to cover up the bottom of the siding, and then I'll provide you with a few examples. So let's go ahead and take a look at, here we have lap siding. It's installed to where the siding laps over the piece below it. So this piece would be installed first, and then this one, and that way the water, when it drains off of it, drains onto the next piece and then down and safely away. And then underneath the siding, we're usually going to have a piece of trim at the bottom to fur out the siding to give it a little bit of an angle to match the rest of the siding. And then of course the building paper underneath that. The building paper is usually going to lap the foundation by at least an inch. And sometimes you're going to have wood trim around it that will usually lap to match the bottom of the siding. So any water that somehow gets behind the siding is supposedly not going to get trapped behind there. It's going to run off of the water-resistant paper. Not waterproof paper. Let's not get carried away here. This paper is water-resistant, and hopefully the water will drain away safely. And that is the reason why we do not want to have the concrete above the siding like you would if you poured the concrete above the bottom of the siding. So here you can see where any water that is behind the siding. I'm not suggesting that any water that gets over the siding that's on the front is going to get trapped. This water could actually just drain away. Any water that gets behind it could actually get trapped in this area. And that might not be a big deal. You know, your wood at the bottom here rots. You could always get a Sawzall and trim this off. You could always trim that off before you poured the sidewalk. But again, you're still creating a situation where water could get trapped and remain in a certain area for a long period of time, creating wood rot eventually to the framing and to the siding. Now let's take a look at a cavity that you could actually create by pouring the concrete around the siding. So here we've removed the trim and the lower piece of siding, and you can actually see that there's a place built out of concrete here that could trap water for a long period of time. And this isn't going to be a problem if it's not around the siding. So if somehow you had siding coming down a little further and the framing is above, maybe, so let's just say at a situation to where this was the height of the sidewalk, and then this came up another foot because it was built out of block or concrete, something like that. You're not going to be affecting the wood framing. And then that might not really be a problem. You're just going to end up with the siding falling apart or disintegrating over time. So I'm not about to suggest that a situation like this is going to ruin the house framing all the time. It all depends upon how the home was built. Now let's take a look at my first suggestion, and this one here I'm not 100% happy with because it's going to create a trip hazard, but I want to just show it to you to get your mind starting to wrap around how you could create some type of a little covert here to drain the water off, some type of a channel to where you're going to be draining the water off. So any water that would come here, you could have this sloping towards the front, you know, or you could have it from here sloping to the back, draining off, or draining off here depending upon your property. So here we would have the water that would come off the siding here would come down here and around here and exit safely, as long as debris wasn't getting trapped in here. If you have a bunch, you know, this channel would have to be cleaned out regularly to function efficiently. Next up on the list, let's go ahead and install some pipes or put some type of holes through the walkway to eliminate the trip hazard. And you can put as many pipes as you want in there, and you can put whatever size. I was just at a place that had little 3/4 inch PVC running through the walls for the drainage, and they had them spaced about maybe 5 inches on center. So there are quite a few of them in there, but smaller ones could get clogged. Larger ones are probably going to be a better option. But again, it depends on what your situation is and why you're doing it. So here we would have any water that would get trapped here would be coming out of the pipes here. And again, the channel is going to need to be at least an inch lower than the siding, maybe 2 inches lower if you're going to use this type of method here, because again, debris could be a problem. You build a channel like this, it's going to have to be cleaned regularly. Otherwise, it's just going to end up becoming an area that's going to fill up with debris. The debris is going to decompose and eventually start rotting away the siding. So sometimes when we build something, we got to put a little more thought into who's going to move into the house next. You might be someone who cleans this stuff out regularly. The next person might not be. In our next example, we could get rid of the channel and maybe put in some type of a planter. And, these planters can be as large as you want. But again, this is going to depend upon your situation. I've seen problems like these or buildings to where the home is only 10 foot away from another home. You have 5 foot and then a fence and then 5 foot to the next house. And if that's the case, you could still build a 3 foot wide sidewalk and leave the channel. But again, this could still be an area that could collect debris. So I'm not suggesting that every solution in this particular video is going to be maintenance free. You're going to have to keep the lines open somehow. So now another thing you need to think about when creating a channel or a planter and you have a pipe running through it. And here I have a piece of metal. You can always use metal instead of plastic. If you're looking for something flat instead of round or rectangular shaped like this one. And of course, here's where the problem could become a nightmare. You're assuming that the water is going to come off the siding into your little channel and then out this way. But what happens if it floods on the other side? Floods on the other side, you have a problem with water on the other side, maybe coming from your neighbor. You're going to end up with water coming into your channel area. It's not going to be draining away, it's going to be coming in. So here's another problem you could run into. And of course, that problem could get worse as the water rises. So in the previous illustration, we didn't have the water above the siding. You're not going to have a problem if the water's not going to be touching the bottom of the siding and rising. And of course, the last suggestion would be to install some type of a site drainage system in here. And I need to point out that these site drains can be located on either side as long as you have the pipes or some type of a hole to where the water that gets trapped here can drain out of it and then into the site drains. I've also seen situations like this where they've had to put the site drains in the sidewalk. So again, if you only have 5 foot here, you don't want to put this in. You're going to bury the siding. Then you don't have a choice. Then maybe the site drains in the sidewalk are going to at least shed off a large portion of the water. You could always have it sloping to one side or sloping to the center, something like that, to where you have a site drain that is going to be collecting the water and getting it out of there. Not going to be the best solution, but again, I understand that a lot of people get trapped in a situation that where they either can't put the site drains in, the site drains aren't going to have much slope to drain the water off, and this goes on and on and on. You pick which one's going to work best for you, or at least reduce the amount of water at the very least. Create a system to where you're draining the most water you can off. And don't forget, gutters are going to be helpful, and the gutters can always drain into the site drains also. The downspouts for the gutters can drain into that. So if you're going to have the site drains located on the other side, make sure that you have your pipes installed in here, or some type of a method to where the water can drain over, can get from point A to point B in the site drains. So let's go ahead and remove the soil. The drain is, of course, going to need to go somewhere, and you're going to want to try and keep it gravity fed if possible. But if not, you might need to install some type of a sump pump system, like something you would put in a basement, and to get the water to drain into a certain area, and then you would pump it to another part of the property. So just a straight pipe in this situation with the fittings, proper fittings. And then they need to be below the siding. I've actually seen people come in and put site drains in, and the site drains are above. The soil is below the siding, but the site drains are actually above, and that's not going to do you any good. The water's going to need to drain into the site drains and away from the siding. Another view of it there, and that wraps up our video. So hope it was helpful. This has been a video that I've been wanting to make for quite some time, and again, thanks for all of you people who are patient with me for this one here. And the reason why I didn't make it was because I had to draw all these site drainage parts. That was about it. So any suggestions, leave them in the video description comment area, and you can always email them to me. Questions, leave them there also. And don't forget to thumbs up the video.